What's up, guys? Welcome back for another EVE Online video. We're going to be talking about manufacturing in EVE, and as most of you have probably realized, every time you look at, industry or manufacturing, it almost always seems like you're going to be manufacturing at a loss, and in most cases, that is true, but I'm going to go over in this video things that you can do to help avoid that and help to improve your profit margins, and some things to keep in mind when you are producing things. One of the major problems with manufacturing and industry in EVE is the free if I farm it mentality. And you probably heard this from several different sources, but this is essentially selling items below the material cost and below like the production costs and everything. And what this is it's mainly it's kind of across the board on most Tech 1, Tech 2 stuff, but like majority of the issue is from Tech 1 items. And what happens here is players will not value their time because they consider that if they go out and mine all the materials, that those materials have zero value. And the why that is important and why that impacts the market is because they're actually producing at a loss intentionally because they want to just make stuff for fun and they don't value their time. So for instance, let's look at this. This is an unresearched venture BPO, and if you open up your industry window and you load up BPO, you can roll over here, and over here in this highlight you can see a estimated price. This is for one venture. This is the material cost, and it's an estimate, right? And I'm sitting in JITA, but like from this window you can see 200 or it's 400, roughly 400,000 value in the materials. And if you roll over this venture here, you see that the average market is like 356. And what I usually do here is I will actually right click on this and I'll hit buy all. This will actually put everything, all the materials required in a buy order. And since we're in JITA, we can see the exact cost. So you can see the exact cost for this venture, if we were just to buy all of the materials for it, would be 436,000 ISK and some change. Now, let's do the same thing with, let's look at the market details now for a venture in JITA. And as you can see here, the highest buy order is 351, and then the lowest sell order is 327, which means that no matter what you do, if you have a venture that you've made and you want to sell, if you sell it in JITA, you're going to be selling at a loss. And a lot of this can be circumvented from having researching your material efficiency on this BPO, which will help a little bit, but for the most part, this indicates to me that we do not want to sell a venture in a major trade hub. We want to go near starter areas. We want to go near areas that are going to be a convenience for the most part. But this is exactly what, farm it, if you farm it, it's free kind of mentality kind of gets us. Is we have all these people out here just mining and mining and mining and mining, and then they're not putting any value on their time. And when they go and they make all these ventures, now their only objective is, well, I got to sell all this. And instead of actually looking at what the minerals that they're putting in are valued at, they're just going to come to JITA and they're going to just try to undercut everybody. And when everybody just keeps undercutting each other and all these, same like-minded industrialists keep undercutting each other, it drives the overall market value for that item down. That is the first major problem that we have to if you're going to be getting into industry, if you're going to be getting into manufacturing, that's one thing you have to be aware of, so that when you actually go out and mine stuff, don't consider the things that you're mining free just because you're having fun mining, just because you're having fun making ships or making modules. Have that value. These people are going out and mining all these materials and they make a venture and they sell it. They're essentially devaluing their own time. They could just end up coming back, reprocessing, taking exactly what it takes to make a venture, all of this. They could just sell the materials and they'd be actually at market value. Instead, they end up taking these materials, making it into a venture, and then selling it lower than what the input materials were, and they're actually devaluing their own time. They're actually not even making a profit, and if they did that long term or at scale, they're ending up just losing money, right? And you can't really fix that because most people just don't care, because they'll just go out and mine another set of materials, and then they'll just keep driving the market down. But just be conscious of what your materials are valued and what they're worth. We're going to offer solutions in this video. I'm going to offer ideas that are going to help with getting a good profit margin and having the strategy. If you're going to get into manufacturing and industry, it's very possible to make a lot of ISK, but you want to be able to keep things in mind. You want to be able to do things in appropriate areas and everything like that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is researching your BPO's material efficiency. And this is usually the first thing that I'll research. So if you go in here, so if I actually research this venture BPO all the way up to plus 10 for material efficiency, it would take 34 days. And I usually do this on all my BPOs. These are, most of mine here are actually not researched because I use them for invention. If you're doing invention for Tech 2 BPCs, the research and the research actually doesn't actually matter. But in the case that I actually want to build a venture, then yes, I'm going to 100% make sure I at least get that plus 10 mineral efficiency. And then, you know, if I can, and most of the time I'll go and try to get the full time efficiency as well. That just allows the job to run faster, which, you know, I value my time. And I think everybody who's doing manufacturing should value your time. And that's why I train into production skills, science skills, you know, everything. There's a lot of things going into, like, you know, improving your profit margins. So researching your BPOs is 100%, you know, extremely important. But I kind of already covered this a little bit as well, but the idea of training reprocessing skills and to, you know, to get more value out of your time. And really this means is, like, if you're actually going out and mining things, then, you know, researching all these you know, if you're doing moon mining and you're researching ubiquitous ore or any sort of like ore-based reprocessing skill, when you go and actually reprocess that, you're going to get more yield out of it. So that's not really going to help your end profit margin, because, you know, your BPO or your BPC is going to have a fixed material requirement, but you get more value for your time when you can get more yield in materials out of the ore you're mining and stuff like that. So that kind of just gets you, you know, your whole organization a little bit more efficient. And the other thing I talked about too is training into production, trade, and science skills. A lot of these have to do with, you know, helping with your time efficiency and also your just profit margins. So for instance, trading, if you know, when you're posting things on sell orders and, you know, you want to train broker relations, you want to trade accounting, you want to trade marketing, you know, any of these skills that can help you post more and for less, because you want to drive your broker fees down, you want to drive your sales tax down, and that just, you know, that impacts your profit margin as well. So be looking at your trade skills, and for your science skills, you're looking at improving things like if you're making industrial ships, you know, industrial ship, you know, construction or scientific networking. If you want to actually manipulate your research stuff, your research jobs from several jumps away. And the same thing goes for production, right? If you're, you know, getting industry skills, getting mass production skills, getting supply chain management will allow you to manipulate manufacturing jobs from a distance, and all these things all come into play, right? And it just helps with your overall operations efficiency. It can be your profit margin efficiency, it can be your time efficiency, or just anything, right? Here's the other thing is you want to sell at or above your material plus your production cost. So what I normally do is, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to manufacture a full run, let's say we're going to do a full run of ventures, what I'm normally going to do is I'm going to go in here like I did before when I checked price. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to grab a value for all this, and normally what you can do is you can go in here and add it all to a multi-buy. I go up here and copy to clipboard, and then, you know, you can paste that value somewhere in like a notepad or whatever, and so you could label this, you know, we'll call it venture material cost, right? And then you can add another line item here. You just get rid of this total, and so we know that right here we can see that it's going to cost us, you know, 2 million ISK to actually run. So you can actually add your job cost in here as well, and you can just kind of keep a log, because you want to record what the value of the materials and the production costs are at the time of the job starting, because the market can change, and when you go to sell it, you know, it might be higher, it might be lower, but that's a comparison you want to make at the time. But you always want to try to sell for what you put into it or above. And that's one really important thing that I'll, you know, and I'll use even like the Eve Notepad to do this. And then whenever you're done, whenever you're getting ready to sell, you can actually, you know, take that same list and plug it into like Eve Appraisal and get a current value as well. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is selling for convenience. And what this really means is, if, like, so for the venture, we already established that the venture itself is not going to sell at material cost in JITA. So what we could do is essentially we're going to try to get at least 421,000 for a venture. And so we're going to be looking at areas around starter systems. We're going to be looking at, maybe the low sec systems that have a high sec connection, or we're going to be selling in null sec. Now I do make ventures quite a bit, but I make ventures not for miners. I make ventures for Sino, people who are running Sino walls for jump freighter routes. So all of the ventures that I produce end up selling in null sec at the value of which I produce them. That's why I also have other BPOs for like the other parts of like the venture Sino. And that's just kind of like, well, I'm not gonna make money in high sec with just a traditional venture, but I can go to null sec and sell it as a Sino ship and actually make a profit, right? And it's thinking about things in that kind of way, depending on whatever you're trying to produce. And that kind of goes into my next point, which is know your market, right? If I'm in null sec and I know I can sell Sino ships out there at or above cost, then that's what I'm going to do. Or if like in your area of high sec, if there's a lot of people running, certain types of ships or certain type of modules, and there's a market nearby, or you can sell them in your corporation, produce the stuff that can sell, because you don't want to produce things that you can't move, but you want to try to you also don't want to be forced to sell the things that you produce at below cost, right? Or below cost. Which is why even if I'm sitting in JITA and I have a stockpile of ventures, I'm not going to sell them at below cost. I will post them up as sell orders for what I paid to actually produce or hire, because I don't want to just break even. I actually want to make money, right? That's the whole point. But that's why I'm going to change this. You want to sell at above material and production cost. You actually want to make a profit, and that's just like taking those assets and and also if you have all these ventures in JITA, and you can't sell them in JITA, then you're going to have to have ways to move them into the areas that you can sell them. So keep that in mind before you produce things as well, because you might be able to just go closer to where your end selling point's going to be and produce them so that your logistics costs aren't that bad. Let's go into point 7 here. Have options, have multiple things that you can make and pivot as the market moves, because the market's always changing. So I usually have a bunch of different things that I can produce. So when I get ready to run a job, I will kind of look at like market trends, like, oh, well, are Caracals selling really well right now, or ethanols, or, whatever these BPOs that I've got, like what is really kind of, what really has good profit margins, and I'll lean more into that instead of just having, instead of just being the guy who just makes procs, right? If you just make procs and you're like, oh, okay, well, procs aren't selling really well right now, so I'll just stockpile them and wait for the market to come back to you, which is fine. But you can do better with your time efficiency by having more things that you can produce that, gives you options to make money kind of on a daily or even like a more convenient or more relevant basis. You want to produce in engineering complexes in null or low sec with appropriate rigs. That's going to help your profit margins as well, especially when it comes to material efficiency, because when you are producing in a NPC station, you're not going to have any system benefit, which a lot of the engineering complexes will have bonuses depending on what security status you're in. Generally speaking, in high sec production, high sec is very limited. So if you can, try to produce in either low sec or in null sec in engineering complexes. Those are player owned citadels, and then with appropriate rigs. And then most people who are putting down like Asbels or Satoyos are going to have like some sort of purpose for that structure. So always ask the structure owner, like, how is this structure rigged? Is it rigged for capital construction? Is it rigged for small subcap ship construction, or is it for ammo or fuel blocks, right? Kind of know what you're putting your jobs into, and always be looking at getting the most out of your profit margin. And the other next point is, you can make parts instead of end products. I know a lot of people want to like go from like mining the ore all the way to like that venture or that procure, which in some cases can be profitable, but on larger jobs it's almost better to just make parts that are required for other industrialists to buy, because what you have to do is, when you're going from basically ore all the way to that end product, there are multiple steps and there are multiple taxes all along the way. And until you get your skills, and until you are living in an area that may have like an engineering complex or rigs and stuff that'll help your profit margins, you might just have to kind of stop halfway in a production pipeline. So for instance, when you're, for making battleships or whatever the case may be, you could just be doing one of those parts that goes into it. Or if we look at, like fuel blocks, you might be just, producing the PI, then sell it to somebody that actually has the ice, or that is also buying ice. And so instead of making the fuel blocks directly, you're just, creating and profiting off of a single part here. And then you only want to sell, only sell in major trade hubs if you can sell for gains. And that kind of goes back to kind of what we were looking at with the Venture here. The Venture is not going to be a good item to sell in JITA because it's just going to have, you're going to be selling at a loss. So I try to stay away from major trade hubs when I'm posting sell orders if I know that I'm not going to like actually make a profit on it. So that goes back to like that convenience. And we'll go on to the next point here, which is sell for your total cost at the time of production, not at the time of sale. Which means that, when you're getting ready to post these ventures, if you open up your entry window and you're looking at the current price for you to produce that item, and then you're pricing your ventures off of that, if that material cost has gone down since you actually made those ventures, you're going to be, selling at a loss. That's why I log everything. Before I start a job, I will keep track of like every cost that is going into that production job. So then when I go to sell it, I'm actually using that information instead of current prices, just so I can keep an eye on, like, because you want to make sure you at least break even. If all you're wanting to do is just make stuff for fun, at least break even. Otherwise, you're kind of just disrupting the entire market, which is, not good. And going on to the final point here, if you're going to buy materials in order to do manufacturing, you want to acquire these materials through buy orders, never through sell orders. And I will illustrate this real quick with like TRIT. So I'm going to go to view market details, and as you can see here, this would be your sell orders, which are always going to be higher, right? This is people who have the item and want to offload it. And then down here, these are your buy orders. These are people who have the ISK but want the item. And so in most cases, your buy orders are going to be at a lower per unit price than your actual sell. So if you're going to be acquiring materials for your job, you want to post buy orders so you can be a little bit lower than if somebody's trying to sell them here. And this is kind of weird though for TRIT though right now, and this is a manipulation order right here, as you can see. But you can see, like, you always want to sort the sell orders by lowest, and then you're going to sort the buy orders by highest. But like in this station here, they're selling TRIT for 4.16, and then TRIT, on these orders is 4.25. And this also goes for when you're actually selling your end product. You never want to like sell to buy orders. So if you have that venture and you're trying to sell it, in certain cases where like the buy orders are above your production costs, sure, sell them to the buy orders. But in most cases, you want to post that venture for like 3 months or whatever the case may be as a sell order, so you can actually get better value. Because buy orders, people putting up buy orders are always going to want to pay less than market, because there's a lot of people in JITA and all over who want to acquire items at a lower cost. And so like this would be the person buying a venture for a very low cost and then immediately posting it as a sell order, marking it up, and that's where they're going to make their profit, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah, TRIT market's really weird right now, actually. Let's look at Mexilon real quick, just give you an idea. So as you see, this is a better representation, right? So like the buy order for Mexilon, 36 or 63.16, and then your sell order is 66. And we'll just kind of look at Isogen as well. So 481 for a top buy order, 508 for top sell order, and then we'll look at Pyrite. Why not? So 10.75. Yeah, Pyrite's a little weird right now too. Buy orders actually higher than the sell orders. But if you follow all this stuff I've been talking about, and you're actually just really paying attention to a lot of your taxes, the cost of materials, the value of materials, not just necessarily the cost. If you go out and mine all of the materials you need for this venture, that doesn't mean that it didn't have a cost. Like, it doesn't have a value, like cost value, right? So if I go out and mine all things and I reprocess it and I have everything here, it still has a value. And that's one big problem with this like mentality, the free if I farm it mentality. Just because you mine it doesn't mean that you can go below material cost Obviously, people do. But the biggest problem with that is they're shortchanging themselves, because they're essentially going out and they're going to go out and mine 420,000 ISK worth of materials, and then they're going to make a venture, and then they're going to sell it for 100K less than what they put into it, which is just really bad economics. But hopefully this answers a lot of questions. And if don't get discouraged. I mean, it's kind of like that across the board. I mean, manufacturing is a rabbit hole. When you start getting into like battleship construction and like capital ship construction, like the more advanced stuff you do, it's a very, very deep rabbit hole that you can go into. But, you know, if you're getting into it, start with T1, but know your cost, know your market, sell where you can make profits, and don't feel pressured to offload those produced items immediately. You know, hold them. I mean, a lot of what we're dealing with in EVE right now is kind of a holder's market. So make those, if you want to make those ventures, hold on to them. Keep monitoring the, you know, the market and everything until you can actually sell them. And in a case where I don't want to micromanage it too much, you know, let's say that, you know, my total cost going in for these would be like 421. We'll just round it up, 421,000. So obviously right now I'm gonna put them up as sell orders, right? Which means that I'm going to be way above market if I put them up. But that's fine, because I will just kind of like, I'll still probably put them up for like 421, and then I'll just wait for the market to kind of come back to me, because that could actually, you know, force a lot of these people to, you know, adjust their sell orders and everything like that. But it's always a battle. It's always a tug of war. But I mean, the venture is just one of those items that probably should just go near a starter area. But even like, let's look at an Epanol. Epanols will do so much better in like nullsec, because you don't really get a whole lot of value out of doing PI and highsec. So Epanols are extremely good profit margins in nullsec, where people are buying them and getting them blown up all the time. But we'll see. We're at a we'll go to single unit on this. We'll go ahead and the estimates always can be off a little bit. Like this estimate says 2.95, but it's actually like 3. So we're looking at like 3 million ISK if you bought all the materials right then in JITA. And then let's look at these profit margins. And so 2.8 if you sold to a buy order, but you know, you can make about 100,000 if you put it on a sell order right now. I do a little bit better with this in nullsec, but you just kind of have to, you know, read the environment, know your market, and by producing these Epanols in nullsec, then you're able to inflate the price a little bit because of convenience. Because if you make everything in highsec, let's say you make a bunch of Epanols or a bunch of anything in highsec, and then you try to like courier them out to nullsec to sell them, you need to also take all that logistics cost and add it into everything as well. That's why I recommend, you know, build where you're going to sell if you can. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope I covered some stuff that like helps you kind of understand like why everything looks like it's, you know, manufacturing at a loss in EVE, and kind of things that you can do to help circumvent that. Just training and just running the numbers, build spreadsheets, get really good at just tracking and logging everything that you're kind of doing. And when you're looking at skills, always look for things that can help you, whether it be like with time, efficiency, or getting better mineral yield or whatever. Always looking for ways to improve your profit margin is #1 rule. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.